Any sort of positive Battlefield 2042 information has become something of a rarity since the game launched. It's really just been like a barrage of scalebacks, reworks, admittance that the game wasn't really what DICE thought players wanted. It's not been a great time really if you're a Battlefield fan. It's been almost 6 months of disappointment. But there might be some good news on the horizon, news that's given me just a little bit more confidence that DICE is going to do right by this game, whatever may come in terms of player population and game popularity. It seems like the development team is fully behind Battlefield 2042, regardless of how players really feel or whether there's going to be any players left by the time the fixes, updates and new content actually arrive. I should first mention actually that the April update, or update 4.0, that's just around the corner. It's coming next week, and there's over 400 different changes, bug fixes and updates that are coming in that update. So plenty of work has been done in the last couple of months or so by the DICE team to get together what is going to be quite a big patch for the game, but by and large, this update isn't going to revolutionize the game or really entice anyone to come back, I think. It's not really offering anything new, it's just making changes to what's already there. And I think new content is going to be the most compelling reason that you'd want to come back and play Battlefield 2042 at the moment. And it's not really offering any major feature changes to the content that's already there, especially to the areas that the community have really spoken out on, and those being the specialists and the major map reworks that are coming in the future. They're not included in this weapon update. There are a couple of tweaks to a couple of different specialists, so they are going to play slightly differently, but that overall change of how specialists might change in Battlefield 2042, that's not happening in this update. But one thing that I did want to sort of highlight is that weapon attachments will be getting an update here, so each individual attachment will end up affecting a weapon differently once this patch goes live, rather than just some of them being cosmetic differences with the same underlying statistics. That's actually a feature that DICE copied over from Battlefield 4. You might remember half the weapon attachments in that game did the same thing as each other and then just looked different. And then of course with the rise of games like Warzone and Modern Warfare, they came in with this much more advanced system called Gunsmith. I think rebalancing the attachments and making them valuable individually is probably the least that DICE could be doing here. Besides the plus system, which is pretty cool, Battlefield 2042's weapon customization is really lackluster, and it gives you way less options than competitor games, whilst not really giving you the sense that you've actually got a wide range of weaponry as well. And that last bit, the wide range of weaponry, that's actually true. The game doesn't really have that many weapons in it, or at least in All-Out Warfare and then Portal separately, because of course in All-Out Warfare you can't get access to like the 1942 BF3 and Bad Company 2 guns. I still don't understand why they can't just put those guns in All-Out Warfare. It just doesn't really make any sense to me. I'm sure there's some technical reason why, but then I have to ask the question, why did you make them differently to the other guns in the game? Just makes no sense, and it's just another thing to add to the pile of questions I'd love to ask about Battlefield 2042 to the developers. But it's really going to be the summer if you're waiting for brand new content to arrive. But yeah, there is an update that's coming out next week if you're interested. And then there's the actual thing that's giving me more hope than I had before for the future of Battlefield 2042. It's this sort of semi-announcement that almost the entire DICE studio is still working on the game post-launch. Now, for any of you who have actually experienced post-launch support for Battlefield games in the past, you'll know that there's usually like this main core team, a really big team, that builds and ships the base game. That's probably the largest team there will be for the game. And then after launch, that team is like broken up into smaller sections. You have like a large chunk of those developers will go off and work on whatever's coming next for the Battlefield franchise, so usually the next game that comes along in a couple of years' time. And then you have smaller chunks that sort of stick with the current game, and they'll work in groups on the DLC or the live service. So they'll bring new updates to the game, they'll add new content like maps, weapons, gadgets, that sort of thing. And generally they're there offering that longer tail of support, which for Battlefield games usually lasts about 2 years, give or take. But it seems that for Battlefield 2042, DICE is going to be sticking with a larger team than perhaps we're used to seeing. With all of the work that DICE now has to do after launch, like reworking their specialists, reworking every single base game map to improve them, making the game function properly still this long after launch, and getting rid of various bugs that are still present in the game, you can perhaps see why almost the entire studio would be needed for that kind of work. Unfortunately, the team is basically having to do all the work they did for the launch again, but this time with a clearer focus on like a singular set goal rather than different groups of people within the same development team working towards different goals. And then things just become really unclear. This information, it comes from a developer on Twitter who was replying to some comments from the community, and the point came up that not every single developer in the studio is working on the same feature at any one time. Different developers will work on different areas of the game, and that means moving forward there will be considerably more changes and updates that will change Battlefield 2042 for the better or worse, we're not sure, but the game will likely be very different from the launch project. And the fact that it will be different, I think, is a good thing, because there's just such a bad taste in people's mouths about that game that dropped in November. Features like in-game VoIP and the scoreboard that actually is a scoreboard now, still kind of not, but it's better than what it was, those have become scapegoats within the community, and considering these are features that absolutely 100% should have been in the game at launch, it's not hard to see why the community focused on them so severely. The fact that it has taken so long for those features to arrive, and with VoIP still coming soon in this April patch, apparently it's coming next week, it makes it really hard to actually believe the developers when they say that almost all of the studio is still working on the game. We all remember the sound bites that we got from EA and DICE before the launch, saying that 2042 was ahead of schedule, and we had the earliest alpha for any Battlefield game ever. You hear that, and then you look at the product that launched in November, and now you look at the length of time that it's taken just to get to this point with some basic features being implemented. And as I say, it makes it very difficult to believe anything that DICE or EA says about Battlefield 2042 at this point. There's simply no trust there whatsoever, and considering this is the second game in a row now to come from the studio that's had massive core issues at its launch and then taken months to fix it, that trust isn't just going to miraculously materialize. It is going to take a long time for the trust from the community to return, and that trust only will return if DICE does actually deliver on their continued word. So now that somebody from the development team has said that most of the development team is still working on Battlefield 2042, that does come with certain expectations. If you've got a large development team working on the game, there is expected to be a pretty large response in terms of updates and content. And I have to look at the April update, and you've got to say, that is a big update, and there is a lot coming from that. But it's moving into the future with the new content that we can expect with the different seasons. I think that's where DICE is really going to be judged, especially Season 1, because that has to come with just some absolutely incredible updates to the game, along with great new content to really reinvigorate all those players who are no longer playing, clearly, because if you look at the player numbers, we are nowhere near where we should be for a Battlefield game this soon after launch. If the word of the development team isn't actually correct, and, you know, not everyone or almost all of the developers at DICE are working on the game, I don't really want to think about what comes next, because I think there's going to be some seriously unhappy players about Battlefield 2042. But yeah, that's about it really. I just wanted to keep you updated with Battlefield 2042 because I am always keeping one eye on what's going on here. I did see a few people leave comments on my previous video where they thought I was being kind of negative about what's going on, and you know, that's not wrong. I am sort of in a negative mindset about Battlefield 2042, but the reason that I'm continuing to cover it here on the channel is that my channel grew so much before the launch of Battlefield 2042. I think there's a lot of people that are interested to hear about what's going on, and they do want to hear my opinion about what I think as well. And I would love it if Battlefield 2042 did actually turn around and became a really good game in the future. And I would love it if my videos could show that sort of progression from where it was really poor to where it got much better. I'm not saying that's actually what's going to happen, but I would love it if I could sort of show that through my videos and such. So at the moment, it's just sort of news videos for Battlefield 2042, really. Hopefully in the future, we could do some actual content videos about what's coming next, or new maps and new weapons and stuff like that. That's the end goal. But at the moment, all I can really bring you is what DICE and EA are telling us. And I just want to make sure I highlight that to everybody, because I know not everyone pays attention to those official posts, especially the people that are really annoyed at what's happened with Battlefield 2042. So yeah, that's my reasoning for doing it. But whatever. Thanks very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you soon.